webinar. So today's webinar is all about windows, high-performing windows for Australian climate, and how it really plays, or what role exactly it plays within the new NCC regulations, achieving 7-star or beyond, and how we can adapt the thinking around, even for retrofitting and new builds equally. And we want also to really dive deep into specifics today. And that means also exploring sustainability.
I'm not sure. I think we lost Sonia.
Okay. I think Sonia's pausing.
In fact, Sonia's paused.
Knowledge we are presented. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Evitat acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. And I want to pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. We are in particular here to listen and learn and build a future together. So today I welcome Michael Collins, Thermotech. And Michael, I will give you in a few seconds also some space to introduce yourself.
Sure.
And of course, we have Simona Schenker, who is not just a technical advisor to Evitat, like she is always an integral part of hosting these sessions with her experience around Passive House and building actually homes that don't cost the earth. I really love that statement. And then Daniel is supporting us with taking on any questions which might actually come from the audience. Please feel free to shoot that through. And Daniel will also run a couple of polls meanwhile. And myself, I'm co-founder of Evitat. I will also explain how that fits into the broader picture of sustainable homes and retrofitting and improving in general our housing stock actually across Australia so that we become and create climate-ready homes. So, Michael, I give you the chance to introduce yourself, and Simona, you can take then a little bit on the questions. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, I won't take up too much time because I realize that other people wish to speak. So I'll be short, shorter than normal. So my experience is that it's always been within the building industry for about a very long period of time. And you could say it's a few decades. Within that, what's always exciting about being part of that is watching the evolution of homes, the way we build and the design of homes and everything. Now, unfortunately, in Australia, our difference compared to many parts of the modern world is more so to do a more decor looking home, to fit the home, to just fill homes, really, more so than anything, where the owner of the home and the builder would just accommodate the colors and everything like that. We never really cared much for the thermal or health of the home to make our energy efficient. We just tend to accept it. We accepted our homes were cold. We accepted our homes were hot in summers. We have a lot of openings purely to let the heat out during summer. And the other part to that, of course, we made rods for our back with that because we love our glass. We get a lot more sunlight than a lot of places do throughout the world. And we love our sun. Unfortunately, our houses weren't that healthy. Also, it's the quality. And seeing that, but also too, grouping together with people who said, hey, you know what? Why don't we become more energy efficient? Why can't we build better homes? Why can't we make our houses healthier? Why can't we also, too, from a micro level, make our houses homes that are therefore energy efficient, which then if you multiply that on a macro level, everybody wins. As a society, we have healthier and better quality homes. We're saving money. We're not relying on energy consumption, which is unsustainable. So making sustainable houses makes our society more sustainable. So with us at Thermotech, that's our key philosophy.
Sounds good. Wonderful. And just one thing I want to say, when you said that there's so much glazing in Australia, what I found interesting, especially when you came to Australia, that many people really have this obsession with glazing. And, obviously that there is a reason, why you want windows and you want views. But I still don't understand until today why everyone wants full height windows, floor to ceiling in every room. And especially when you have furniture placed against it. And that's just something where people have to rethink a little bit. And I think this image here is a nice sample. You don't need full height windows in this room. It works perfectly fine. And A, you save on the glazing and on the cost, and B, you lose less heat. Because I guess what most people still don't know is that even the best triple or even quadruple glazing is not as good as an insulated wall. So even if you spend an absolute fortune on windows, you can't just live in a glass palace. I mean, you could, but would be a bit crazy. So you have to be a bit smarter with windows, but I think we're going to talk about that a bit more.
And you're right, Simone. And the thing is, that's where the shift, the mental shift is. It's how the window works, the size of the window. Currently, our windows basically just keep out the rain. We get to see through it, but it's basically the only thing it really does is keeping out the rain. And it's changing that around the configuration, the design, and everything with that. Yeah, you're right.
Definitely. So maybe let's jump into the question. So what energy standards do your UPVC windows meet, and are they independently certified? Because I know there is a bit of stigma. Sometimes people still think, oh yeah, plastic windows and, they're not good quality. And yeah, so maybe if you talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah, if you want to know more, yeah, we could talk about, do you want to talk about the profile itself now, or do you want to divulge that? We just talk about the certification.
Yeah, maybe so just talk about the certification,
yeah,
and then we can go into a bit more detail.
Absolutely. So right now it's WRS certified, which is accredited by the Australian Federation Rating Council, and that basically adheres to their protocols and procedures for the rating of all windows and glazed doors, which is then managed by AGWA as well.
Good. And then, yeah, maybe tell a little bit more about, the UPVC, the windows in itself, if we go a little bit about the stigma, because some people think, are they, plastic windows, they look cheap or they're flimsy. But I think you're not quite comparing apples with apples there.
You know what? That's a great question. In Australia, it's a very new thing. If you were to go like yourself, Simone, you ask people, wow, UPVC windows, how new are they? And I often just relate this back as a simple analogy to say, look, if I was from Europe, the question would be that how long have I been wearing shoes? All my life would be the answer, of course. Now, what that means is that PVC, the critical part to that is the U that goes in front of the word, the letters PVC. We're not talking fast food knives and forks that you find that are just pure plastic, chemically based. This is UPVC, which is basically meaning unplasticized. Now, we will dive more into that basically with that product because it is not a true plastic. It's partial plastic of that. Within that too, on the energy efficiency of it, it's basically has 5 chambers, it has dual seals. The energy rating to which comes down to 1.7 on a U value. We can actually get down to a 1 based on its triple glazing. So what we often say to people, of course, you can refer to the WRS glazing situation on that. Also, too, that part of the vinyl, which often a lot of people do, they say that a lot in America, is you've got to remember that most of this product is made from sea salt. 48% of the UPVC window is sea salt, which is a very, very important one to clarify as well.
Yeah. And one other aspect is where, when we're talking about U values 1 or 1.7, actually the lower the U value, the better for the people that don't
Absolutely
understand.
Critical there.
And yeah, and just one thing what I want to say is because often people think, double glazing is double glazing, but you actually can get double glazing with, don't want to name and shame, but, just standard aluminium frames, and they still have a U value of a 1.4 or maybe 3.5 or something. So they're still not really good windows, even though they're double glazed. So not each double glazing window is good performing, and not every double glazing is suitable for a high performing home.
And that's a great one, Simone, because I want to bring that back. So what we have now is we're talking about double glazing or triple glazing. We're talking about the glass. The glass goes within a frame, and that frame goes within the opening. So the frame is critical to how the glass performs. So The glass needs to not be pulled or affected by the frame. So the great thing with UPVC is that it's neutral. It doesn't need thermally broken because it's already thermal. So therefore now the glass within that frame, whether it be double glazing or triple glazing, is now working to its optimum, because you can put a product within that frame that will either get hot from the sun from outside or cool, and that energy will then transfer into the glass. So I often use the egg and the fry pan, for example, scenario. If the glass is the egg and the frame is the pan, you heat the pan, what happens to the egg? It cooks. So the energy has to transfer somewhere. So the great thing with the UPVC, because it retains its neutrality, is it allows the glass to not be pulled or pushed with cold or heat. It then performs to its absolute optimum level.
On this note, I think this is a really important part to really clarify, because it incorporates also a different, design approach, of course. If you just put everywhere glazing in your design concept, then even a triple glazing window might actually struggle to perform at its best. But if you have really interesting and a very energy efficiency approach in your design components, then you are able actually to utilize to the full performance and the efficiency of windows and even other material choices, and really create a low energy home, which doesn't require a lot cooling or heating. So it's a really essential approach to anything, and it doesn't even only apply to new builds. It really applies also to retrofits, because you can modify maybe a certain aspect. If you have bad orientation or something, you can modify that in a simple way and really achieve great outcomes, and have actually the double glazing, for example, with a thermally broken frame in a best way possible performing. So this part is really important to get it right. Yeah.
But then
I
maybe
think
if
too.
no, sorry, keep
Yeah,
going,
go on,
Michael.
sorry.
And like
No, I was
you
just going to
keep
say, because it goes back to, we do want windows in our home. That's a fact. We want light to come in. We want to see what's outside and everything like that. The shift is, of course, as you're saying, Simone, yeah, you've come here and you're like, hey, we love our glass. We have unhealthy homes. If we shift that to where we make the windows better quality, you can change sizes, you can look at design. Also, too, you can look at solar passive homes as well. So where you are configuring your home, because you're talking about the whole home, is the window critical and the quality of that window critical? Absolute. And so you can't have a hole in your home. So what we're talking about here, of course, is making sure that the whole envelope is allowed, how that window and heat and energy efficiency is gained within that.
definitely. And the thing is as well, I think you just have to be a bit smarter with your window design rather than having floor to ceiling windows everywhere. You think about, where do you need doors? Where are you actually going out? Is there somewhere where you put furniture so you can, you introduce a sill height? Or is there maybe in your dining room, can you have the windows in height that you rather frame a few? So there are quite a few options. But another thing what I wanted to talk about is, the actual performance of windows, because the installation of the windows is so critical. So can you maybe tell us a little bit, what measures do you take to ensure they're installed properly, and the ceiling is done right, that you maximize the efficiency of the windows?
Absolutely. And that is a really critical one, because you're going to have the best performing glass, the best frames, well manufactured from us. However, if it's not installed correctly, there's a leak. It's a fail. Somewhere's failed. So that's critical, absolute critical one. So what we do an aggressive training on site with the builder, with the homeowner, if it's an owner builder or the builder. We have videos, training videos. We do the hardwood reveals, which are foil wrapped. For example, we provide those. So absolutely, we take it through with the builder. We will talk through the builder, how you're installing it. We will do CAD drawings provided for them as well, how it's leveled, whether it's, on a flush mounted flooring, whatever, depending on the situation. We don't just deliver the windows and say, hey, Mr. Builder, good luck. These are great windows. but how you install them is entirely up to you. We don't do that. So the idea is, because it is critical for us to make sure it performs to the maximum for the builder, and also too, at the end of the day, for the homeowner, because then we haven't failed our philosophy on that. So we do have field services who go to site and are willing to teach. People are more than willing to come to our showroom and factory and have a look around as well.
That's great. It's so important. And I remember, I think it was as well in my first years in Australia, I went somewhere where someone had installed double glazed windows, and I couldn't believe my eyes, because kind of the stud wall finished here, they installed the window here, and then they just put, whatever plasterboard on either side. It's like, but there are gaps. There is no ceiling. There is no insulation. What are you doing there? And it just was completely baffled that it was normal procedure back then.
You know why that, Simone? We made plasterboard in Australia? It was to hide the gaps. That's why we did it.
Probably. But we just have a follow-up question, Michael, from the topic before about U-value and SHGC. So Andrew asked, can you please explain the difference of U-value and SHGC, and how design by way of shading can impact on SHGC versus the need for a lower U-value to have the window performance?
Yeah, and that's a good one, because again, that comes down to configuration of the home as well. So SHGC basically is the solar heat gain that's coming in. So whether you have, for example, within the glazing, you might want a low E, which will reflect the UV that's coming through. The good part to that too, a lot of people don't realize that low E actually helps in winter, because it actually keeps the heat in. So you're creating the heat within your home. It actually stops it from escaping. But you may have a north-facing window, for example. You want some light to come in, but you may want also extra heat gain coming through on that particular part. Whereas a west wall, you don't want necessarily, because as the sun is setting in the summer, you don't want the heat gain coming in. With that, you want a lower heat gain, but of course, you also too want a lower U value. Whereas on the north wall, you might have if you want a higher heat gain, generally the the U value, I should say, is a little bit higher. But if we're going to talk about 7-star at some stage, I'm sure of it. And within that, we're doing 1.7 just on a standard double glazing. Whereas 7-star is the whole envelope of the house, of course, but within that, the windows don't even need to be anywhere near that good a level.
Yep.
So basically, going back, is that the lower the U value, the better the performance of that window. So with anything under about 2.9 is brilliant.
Yeah. But one thing as well, even I think with the best SHGC, even if you have some films on it, you have to be careful, because once the sun hits the glass, the house can still heat up. So even your very best window, will need to be protected in summer with some, kind of shading. And there it depends as well, on the northern side, eaves can work quite well. But on the western side, where the sun can come really low, eaves typically are not enough, and you need some sort of external shading. But it's a whole completely different topic.
And you're right there, Simone. Also, too, because some people will use that heat gain to warm their house.
Yes.
So that's the solar passive side of it, that they'll use that to pull in the winter sun or the heat coming from the east, and as the sun rises, it'll warm the house, but at the same time, heat the house overly hot. Hot. I'll try that again in English.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit more about the frames. And you talked already about the that there's actually sand. Was it sand in it? No.
Salt.
Sorry, salt. Sea salt.
Salt.
But can you explain a little bit more about that? Because some people are a bit concerned. Should I actually go with timber framing, because timber framing is better for the environment, or is there some recycled content? Can you shed a bit of light about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the great thing is timber. We just see timber as, because it's a natural product. It grows. It's trees. We love it. It's there. It's nature's provided that. Unfortunately, we have to also be honest and say, great, nature provides it, but we need to take it out of nature, which means we chop down trees. So is that itself sustainable? 2, it's then therefore, because we're taking a huge amount of those trees out, we got to replant them. So therefore, we're relying on new growth forest. There's been a lot of research done with timber in the new growth forest that it actually doesn't grow as well as old timber. There's so many things to it. Timber is a great, beautiful, natural thermal product. The great thing with UPVC is that we've looked at it that, hey, that's the closest you can get to the thermal properties of timber in a natural state. So that is a really, really positive one there as well. So for the Australian climate, a lot of people say, okay, UPVC, yeah, it's wonderful. Does it work here? Yes, within the UPVC itself, for Australia, it does have polymers within it that will which won't be affected by high UV values. Has been tested by the CSIRO. They have a UV testing plant in a very, very long name town in Queensland, and for me to pronounce it would be like saying a Welsh town, so I won't. But they basically tested the UPVC window frames for a 20-year blast of UV ultraviolet light. So there won't be any fading or cracking or anything like that. So for Australian conditions, regardless of where you are in Australia, you can comfortably put your UPVC windows in. They won't fade or crack. Put them in the desert, put them near the sea, which they'll love because they're mostly sea salt. So no problem there at all. And also too, the great part to that, of course, with Australia, we have bushfires. So it is Bell rated to 40.
Yeah. And the good
yeah, sorry, Simona, just maybe
No.
to add to this,
Sure.
just to maybe highlight again, the timber frames, of course, you know, if you have a really good design, timber frames can be also attributed to sustainability overall.
Absolutely.
But think again, you know, how much maintenance actually timber
Thank you.
needs.
And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because I want to reflect on this particularly in particular coastal areas where you have also the salt in the air and other elements actually constantly working with timber. And it can actually yeah, like basically mature over time and start cracking. There's other things, so you constantly need to work with timber. And I can tell that actually from our timber decking in our at our place in Queensland. It's a 2 years constantly maintenance program you need to do. And we have neighbors who have built completely with timber frames. They can't even reach certain windows because it's such a big effort. So keep that really in mind. And on the European note, I think, Simona, you can agree to this. We all grew up actually with UPVC windows. This is pretty much the mainstream standard across Europe and a lot of Northern Hemisphere territories in general. And think of, you know, utilizing, we will scratch a little bit more around circularity in a second, but this is really an opportunity to have a good, solid, energy efficient product probably into the mainstream market to enable better outcomes actually on home efficiency and sustainability as a first layer. And of course, if you can do more, even better. But I think we have this massive gap actually to provide even solution into that mainstream market. So this is where I see a lot of opportunity for UPVC.
And well said, Sonia, because you're right there. Because what we're talking about a window going in a home. A home has to perform. That's the performance of it. But also too, over a certain period, but also too, it's the cost, not just of the saving of energy efficiency, but the cost of maintenance. So you've got to calculate within your home, you're going to spend a certain amount of money. Okay, energy. Now, great, you're saving that energy, but also to the benefits of that, great. Guess what? Do we want to pay down windows all the time? Really? Seriously? I don't think so. So the saving of that is very true. And the fact that timber is, though, a wonderful naturally product, it is a living product. It constantly needs maintenance. It's an absolute. And that's huge.
Yep.
And just as a little anecdote, so at our own place, we have UPVC windows, but for a wheel timber entry door. And the door is fully protected. So there is kind of a cover, kind of a cantilevering part. So it never hits, you know, never any rain or something. And we've been in the house for about 1.5 years and suddenly the door wouldn't close. So it turned out, because of the spray just from the water, the humidity in the air, the timber had started to swell slightly and we had to readjust the door. So now I have to make sure that I oil the door every half a year or year because, yeah, ideally every half a year because it can't grow anymore or we can't close the door. So, even though, we thought it's protected very well from the environment. So there's always something to do with timber.
You know what? I love that one because often enough people go, gee, but how often do I really have to do my windows if they're timber? And often I say, I'll tell you what, go to somebody's house who has a timber deck. And I'll guarantee you, they very rarely oil them, even though you really should oil them, say, depending if it's full sun, every 6 months. If it's shaded, maybe once every year. But it's a lot of work. So this is where we can help.
Good. So yes, let's go a bit more into circularity and the materials. So, it says it already nicely here on the screen. And, we talked already a bit about UPVC and, where it's coming from. But can you tell us a little bit more about, the recycled content or if it can be recycled?
Yeah, and that's critical. So basically, we're taking something, we're building something with resources. So now then we go, okay, great, but also too, what happens with that? So what is the resources made from? As you can see, it's 70% recycled componentry within the frame itself. So which is very huge. And so with that, of course, then you have 100% recyclability with that. The circular economy with that, so therefore you can keep recycling that with the UPVC. The great thing is with a lot of products, you can only recycle them to a certain extent and then they just lose their strength and integrity. With the UPVC, it actually gains strength. It's kind of like knitting bones is analogy I use, that often enough you'll see somebody who may break a bone or something like that, but actually the bone strengthens and knits and it gets tighter and stronger. And this happens with UPVC. So it basically can recycle itself completely up to at least 8 times. So though we won't be around for a long period of time, which is really a long period of time when you base it on that a UPVC window can last from 50 to 70 years approximately. Yep. Now, of course, with that, you're seeing that the energy savings during the production, therefore, is 50%, which is enormous. So we're not just seeing the savings from the usage of the home, but the savings that before it even comes to your home, before you even open the door on your new home, you've actually made a great contribution to energy saving already. And with that, of course, as you say, 50% energy savings, and which is up to 60% of air and water emissions, which is quite a large number.
It is a lot. So what can you tell, if an owner or, a builder wants to recycle windows, what do they have to do or, where do they go?
Okay, that's a really good one. In Australia, recycling is a rubber word. We're not really good at recycling a lot of things. However, the great thing with UPVC, the way we recycle it within our factories, basically with all the offcuts and everything that goes with that, we then send that back to our supplier, which is Alaplast, and they do an amazing job with that, with the recycling. They really own it wonderfully, which is something we love. And what they do with that is then they take that and then they recycle those offcuts and pieces back into other things such as composite decking. So benches that you'll often see around, the council's now putting up, composite style decking that lasts for a lot longer period, but it's made from recycled products. So it does go back into the economy that way.
That's great.
And that's actually circular economy. So
Correct.
Really thinking around compositions, material compositions, making sure that they can be separate at end of life. Yep. And then even either creating new products out of it or putting them back into a cycle again. I think these components are really valuable also to understand from the business point how, for example, companies like even Alaplast have actually utilized different revenue streams possible. And there will be more and more to it. Like there's a lot of regulatory coming from Europe and also the northern part of the United States. I think there's really a lot of pressure coming more to enabling like markets and market adoption in circular product components. So I'm really pleased to hear that and to see that, because like on Evitat, we really want to highlight and make it tangible to understand these multiple benefits, how like companies are operating, and what even supply chain emissions means. So on that side, we will be working with Thermotech to enable that down the track. We are already extracting, for example, on material levels, in particular around biomaterials, embodied carbon information, and other like co-benefits in terms of ratings and so on. But this will be extended to the more complex products, like, for example, windows, which are assembled here actually locally. So that also contributes to local jobs and economies, a really important part as well.
Absolutely critical. Absolutely. Well said, son.
That's great. So we talked quite a bit about the frames, but obviously to window, there is another really important factor, the glass. Can you tell us
Just
a
a
little
bit.
bit about the supply chains, you know, where's the source, where it's coming from, and also is it recyclable or recycled?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So basically, we partnered with a number of companies. Viridian is a strategic partner of ours. A lot of people may have seen our windows using Viridian glass on the block, which were very large windows. And also, too, a lot of people are unaware that that's all triple glazed. So, which shows, you know, a lot of capabilities there. So glass is critical because that's the biggest mass area with that. So we build the frames within that, of course, allow the glass to perform to its maximum. With that, I still recall like talking about the quality of glass and how glass is really making an impact on the way we build our homes and envelopes and everything like that. Is that 10 years ago, double glazing was, we were just introducing that. We were just getting people to understand the concept of double glazing. Now we're seeing a great move, talking about evolution in my opening, of how people think and becoming more aware and what they want in the home. Now we're seeing a lot more to the triple glazing and awareness of the UV, which now supports the glass companies to go, hey, we're being able to provide those solutions to that opening that of people wanting.
And the interesting factor is that the cost difference between double and triple isn't actually that great anymore. It's not
I think with that, it's like a lot of things. I think the science to that, to products, is that it's great because demand will drive that. I think demand, I mean, we can all recall when, you know, when first DVD came out, it was probably like $900. I mean, people just laugh at that. However, with that, the science gets better, the demand drives that, and also to R&D. And then, of course, that brings that into it and then brings that down as well.
Yep. That's good. But when we talk about costing, you know, we understand that Thermotech is looking at standardized forms and, you know, sizing of windows to make designing and pricing of homes, you know, much faster, and obviously less wasteful, you know, more affordable. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay, so that's a really good one. So what the idea is that we're basically putting together some ideas. So it really comes down to design ideas. So where you have that is what we were talking about earlier. Getting people to now go away from the concept of having certain openings, certain, you know, designs or whatever. How do I make it more affordable? I want a high energy efficient home. How can I have that, but I still want glass? I still want windows, but how do I make them perform? So that's really where we come down to the design side of it. We come down to sizing. We come down also to the openings. Because a lot of people, you can go through, if you have a normal home now, an Australian home, right now, you can look around your house and you'll see practically every window that opens. Don't forget, you're changing the dynamics on your house. So do you have to have as many openings? Now, those openings cost more money. Also, too, reduce the size, which makes it more affordable as well. So that's where we have the showroom, we have the factory, we have our design team here that can actually sit there, work it out with you. You also work with your energy rater to get the maximum benefit. So there's a lot into it, but we're doing many different things on that level.
Yeah. And in the background, there's actually a nice project that we had worked together on. So we had done a design and you had provided the windows. And on the bottom one, you can see there is a nice sample for that. You know, it's a really nice big
Isn't
picture
it?
frame window that looks
Yep.
into the garden. There's no opening. It's just fixed glazing. So it's actually much more affordable than if you were trying to fit in an opening in that instance.
Correct.
And it looks nicer because you have this
Oh,
really
it does.
nice
Yeah.
framing
And
view.
that's the beauty. A lot of people tend to get away from the fact that, hey, if I want a high energy rated home, I've got to suffer in the sense of design, where you don't. And this is a perfect example of the job here, Simone. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or even when you look at the top left, that image, you know, you can see on the left-hand side, I can't remember, was that a bedroom? Or was that the
Yeah, that would have been a bedroom up there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure on
the
that one.
bedroom or the rumpus? Can't remember. No, I think the bedroom. In that instance as well, there is a big fixed glazed area and then just a
Yep.
small openable part.
That's it.
Which and that's an interesting thing because I know typically people, they kind of split their windows, you know, that you would make them half and you have both sides opening. But why? You know, why is everyone doing that?
Thank you.
So this is a good sample. We often do that either 1/3 or even 1/4, where the bigger part is fixed, that gives you a nice frame view, and the smaller part is openable for your ventilation. Costs significant less and typically looks better.
And yeah, and beautiful, because you're right. You often go in Australia, you'll see a 6 pane on a, if it's 2700 wide, say 1800 door in a lounge room, you'll have 6 panes. 3 of those or 2 of those at least will be opening, and you've got the mullions and so forth around it, and that's extra money. So that's got higher cost. Whereas you can have a big picture frame with a small tilt and turn, which is designed to let air flow through the home, take bad air out, and yet probably a lot cheaper than if you were to do it that other design that you normally see.
Yep. Yeah. So a bit of
So
a
that's where it
rethinking.
comes down to design.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only basically relate to this again through the home we have up north. It has incredible good airflow, and without that airflow, we will be baking in the summer heat in Queensland, to be honest. So utilizing actually in a smart way natural airflow is so important, but you don't necessarily need actually every window to be opened. So it's a really, again, it taps into affordability, it taps into the opportunities to design really for climate and with smart outcomes, yeah, for everyone.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well said. And
But
we
before
often have that. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Yeah, we often have that. I'll have somebody bring their planes in and they'll say, I want my window looking like this. And I say, but I want to make it more affordable. And I said, I tell you what, I can make your house, I can make that window very energy efficient. I can make it and more affordable by simply giving you a design, but also too a design, just like you're seeing there with the bench seat there, is that it's a picture window. It creates now an ambience. So you've got the ambience as well as, guess what, energy efficiency and more affordability. So you don't lose on that.
Okay, my puppy was just going off like crazy. I hope you
Your puppy?
can't hear.
Okay, that's all right.
You
He can
can't hear
talk if he wishes. He's
you
welcome.
you can't hear too much. Yeah, I was just thinking before we go and talk more about a couple of projects, I just wanted to ask you about the ways that Thermotex is trying to help professionals, you know, with the chain of custody and, you know, supply chain
Yeah.
reporting and, you know, showrooms or, you know, training courses. If you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, and you're right there. So basically that comes down to what we have, where I am right now. So our factory showroom. So we want to provide it from the very onset. This is the whole cultural shift too. We were talking about cultural shift with the homeowner and the window framing and everything, but also to a cultural shift in how you now purchase your windows, how you're working with the builder and so forth like that. The driver of this is generally the owner because of what they want, the quality. The builder, of course, and the architect want to provide that to them. So coming to us, we're working with all. It's a whole group because this is where what we have is one thing in common, and that is the philosophical alliance. And that is where we all agree that, hey, we all want to join together. How do we all work it? So the builder will do it, the architect will design the envelope. Within that, of course, are the windows, and how do we make it more energy efficient? So what we do, we welcome people to come into our showroom to have a look. We do, to see the quality through our factory, but also too, as we talked about earlier, the design of the product, how we can maximize your gain on energy saving, but also design, whether we can reduce that and also to make it more affordable. Everyone is different. Every house is different. So with that, we then have training videos for the builders. With that, we also have training and tours and everything like that. So we work with it. Then we break it within that of the project itself. We will take people through the journey of that. So there's many different complexes we do, but every part of that, we have a team that will also help the person through that process. I hope that helped you.
Maybe, yeah, like I had the pleasure actually experiencing the showroom in December, and it's really great. I mean, I'm familiar with tilt and turn, with UPVC windows, but I think a lot of, in particular, clients haven't experienced it, and it's a great way actually to understand the multiple types to it, but also to understand even how, for example, the broken frame works and what that means even. So there's a lot of cut through examples,
Yes.
which really demonstrate what that means. And I mean, I know we talked a lot about all specifications and materials, supporting materials for builders, even for an owner builder. It's a great resource to tap in and really to get the head around what it means, and then incorporating it. It's an basically a free resource to use, and really to incorporate ideas in an early stage, rather than thinking of it in a late stage as an just an added layer or something. Yeah. So it's a really great way actually to experience that. Yeah.
And well said, Sonia, because the thing is too, in the early design, someone may come to Simone and Simone will go through it with the designing of the home. But also too, they'll say, hey, I want to have an energy efficient home, whether they go to a builder or whoever, but they don't know, okay, what is the design of the windows? How do they work? How do they ventilate? What is the function of it? So we're talking about the thermal part of it, but also too, it's got a function. So you're right. And when people come to the showroom, they think, oh, what's a tilt and turn? I've heard of it. I might have seen it on a holiday for a moment, and I got scared because it came towards me and it's a little bit different, that kind of thing. But what is the purpose of it? What is its point? So learning how it will work with you is absolutely critical too. And also too, the great thing with the Olaplex profile is that it has cool technology. Now, what is cool technology? Basically, with colors, like dark colors, like blacks and the wood grains and so forth, if we were to put that under a UV camera, they're white. So, which is amazing. So therefore, it's like, wow, why is it white? Because the great thing is the infrared heat is lessened because it's not attracting any other different than white. And this is the great breakthrough that UPVC has come. So it's been around for a long period, but like we can use the simple analogy like automobiles, they evolve. We've gone from petrol combustion cars to EVs and so forth like that. We've evolved that. So the same thing is with the profiles of UPVC. It's amazing to see. So that's another great thing as well.
It's nice. And I think another thing, like you said, with the showroom, it's good for people to see UPVC. But we had that experience as well. So we're doing a project for kind of middle-aged women, and they were a bit worried that the big sliding doors would be heavy, that they would not be able to open them or lift them. But then they came to our house as well for a bit of a tour, and then they realized, actually, that's really easy. They're not heavy at all. And things like that, people just don't know that, that they might be a bit scared, or so. I think it's really good to experience it at first hand.
And well said, because we have a door here that's probably 160 kilos, and it's people slide it and they go, how much do you think that weighs? I say approximately about 160 kilos. They go, oh my God. Because if something's hard, you don't open it. You don't want to use it. Doesn't matter much how you like looking at it, you won't touch it. But this is the beauty, it functions.
That is true. No, that's great. But then maybe a question for you as well, if we talk about, the windows and, star rating and passive house, can a product or window actually be certified or accredited for 7-star homes or the passive house standard, or is it more how it's, it's used, and, how should people approach that? It's I guess something for you to say, and maybe I can add a bit to it too.
Yeah, and you're the expert there, Simone. So with that, with our range, it is passive certified, passive house through PHPP, absolutely. So regarding 7-star, well, I mean, 7-star is really pretty much the whole house, of course. So our windows if someone came to us and said, I want a 7-star window, yeah, I could do that in my sleep. So there's no problem there, of course. So now you got to just talk about the whole envelope, which is really what the builder, the architect will design for you.
Yeah. And one thing as well, I know many people are still scared, for the 7 stars and whatnot, that it will be really expensive. But, and I've done quite a few talks about it, and I'm really convinced that if you design your house properly with passive solar principles in mind, 7-star is definitely not hard. I mean, there's some special or difficult sites, or renovation extensions can be challenging. But if you build a new build, it's fairly simple, and a normal double glazed UPVC windows should get you there. You wouldn't need triple glazing. Unless if you go overboard with too much glazing and whatnot. But I think there's nothing to be scared about. It can easily be done. And when it comes to passive house, I think the important thing is it's just, I don't want to go into too much detail, but it's way more stringent than the 7-star rating or getting to 7 stars. So the important thing is get it assessed early on. Don't assume things work. So what you do is you test your house with the passive house planning package, the passive house calculation program, and then you see what is the actual performance you need. So you don't need any guesswork. You get actual data, this and this performance is needed. And that's what had happened with the project we had with in Woodend with Michael and his team. We went to them, okay, we need this and this specification, and that's what we got.
Correct. Absolutely well said.
Yeah.
So Michael, the Warburton project we are currently looking on, like this was in particular also like, I think, a new build, or was it a kind of retrofit?
No, mostly a U build. It was on a very beautiful, I mean, Warburton's a lovely place, as it is, and it had a high bell. It had a bell rating of 29 on that project. So it was on a sloping block as well. So, but again, it was a passive light version as well. So not necessarily, it wasn't fully certified, but again, it's passive light. So it meets the criteria of a passive home. It's just that they didn't go the full step of getting a passive certified on that. But again, as you can see, they wanted to take care of the vistas, encourage that, but also notice too, they didn't go over large. So keeping that passive principle to the house, allowing enough light, because a lot of people tend to think, hey, do I have to have a very small box window? You can have certain sizes, of course, as Simone mentioned earlier. But yeah, very, very beautiful home as it turned out to be, as you can see, and still making those ratings.
Yeah, it's beautiful, even from inside and outside, and it still keeps a little bit the typical, a vacation home kind of character. So which is a lovely thing as well. So it didn't transform into this modern glass kind of thing, which we also see sometimes in certain areas, unfortunately. But I think this has a lot of integrity around the place and what is conceptually like what they wanted to achieve. It's a very nicely done design as well. So we have probably another 10 minutes. Is there anything in terms of any questions maybe from the audience still to answer? Simona, do you have anything else? Because other than that, I can also demonstrate the logbook. Simona?
Sorry, I had to mute myself because of the dog.
Okay.
One thing what I wanted to mention on this image is, you know, like people said, like we said before, some people, they really like the look of wood or timber. And this is a great example that you still can have timber reveals, for instance, at the inside,
said.
if you want a bit more of that warm or, you know, timber look, but, you know,
Yeah.
stay away from the outside. So I think that is a really nice sample, the one on the right-hand side, that you still can integrate timber.
Well said. They
Yeah, but
complement
otherwise,
well.
yeah. Otherwise, all good for you, Sonia.
Okay. Well, one thing I really want to emphasize, for example, when we onboard any manufacturer, any company like Thermotech who is assembling actually a finished product, or supplier, even installers, they go through a vetting process on Evitat, because we want to know more than just, you know, the product and some marketing statements around it. So for us, it's really integral to add credibility, but also evidence around sustainability claims. And when I visited actually Thermotech in December, it was also that little peek into, you know, everything they do and how they do it. And I think it's really important to get that message across. I know there's plenty of companies out there, but being part of that economy is really important. And I can't emphasize enough on the importance also to base your decisions around, for example, windows, you know, if they are locally made, for example, it is contributing to the local economy, to creating jobs and lives. So in that sense, looking at the challenges across the construction sector at the moment, and in particular, like the challenges around supply chain. So it's a great way really to even, you know, talk with companies like Thermotech and others who are doing similar things. But it's really important that we find avenues, for example, to have more of that mainstream market, because these products are really, really important. They are really important on our pathway to decarbonize, to actually deliver better homes and homes with purpose. Because this is really the big gap in the Australian landscape of building performance and climate resilience. So and that will only intensify the pressure on that side because of the climate change, the patterns, and all these effects. And before we leave everything out to regulatory to take on these things, it will take ages. So it's really important to understand the power behind building that ecosystem. And that's how we got actually together to some degree to collaborate and to include into Evitat also Thermotech windows. And I think it's a really nice way to look at progression of companies and the pathways they take in exploring sustainable principles, finding avenues and markets within. And really, and that's something we really want to support. So on that side, I want also to give you a little bit of an inside view into the platform. So there's, of course, the marketplace that's really to enable easier sourcing of these great companies, these material and product choices, and so on. And even collaborating with clients, for example, on these decisions. But then there is also that component when you, for example, go ahead with engaging Thermotech or any other one who is basically onboarded, that information and the data flow goes into your client logbook. And I want to show you that quickly. Just a second. So this is basically the Thermotech page. So if I open the panel here, you will see this is my basically my test home, where I can play around a little bit. But when you add, for example, home improvements, we have here a section about windows. And for example, the type of windows you have can make a huge difference to the comfort. So we do ask if they're double or triple glazed windows, and then it becomes more granular. So it goes even further. It adds to the impact meter, but it also reverse engineered these questions, you know, how much have you benefit from in terms of comfort? Comfort is a central piece, even, you know, within the understanding of the home's performance, so the building performance and how it contributes to resilience. So we are working towards enabling the climate readiness of homes, and this taps also into a late, like the last research piece presented to the federal government from Climate Works, where it's really an integral part to understand the quality of your home. And it will play a more and more significant part. I mean, this summer here in Victoria is not maybe the typical one, but if you look at Perth, for example, they are sweltering through days, 40 plus degrees. And I can tell you, by the posts in many of these Facebook groups, a lot of these people are struggling actually. And although they have a lot on already actually added to the home's performance, so there's a lot of questions, you know, what else can I do? And what can I actually consider? Because the experience is extreme. So it comes really to the point where you will shift your priorities, and all of a sudden the priority might not be the bench top, and you will maybe prefer, you know, to add actually in the next renovation phase some budget towards better performing windows or the general insulation, and you are starting actually to work out your home's location, orientation, and the climate specific. So it's a really important part. What we do actually with the logbook here is it will become this repository of added home improvements over time, and it will capture how it draw down, for example, your carbon emissions, but it will also give, for example, an indicator of biomaterials, low embodied carbon, and many more aspects to it. And that can be used, for example, in future to have a very good argument, for example, with your insurers or with your finance institutions, your banks, you know, to access better products, because they are all talking about reshaping the market. For insurers, it's already a big headache. They don't necessarily want to red mark your home just because it's underperforming or not resilient. But at the moment, that's exactly the outcome we are facing, that some homes are uninsurable. And this repository is actually giving you some good evidence around the improvements you have done and how you stick out of your neighbors. And it's not about beautification, it's all about the internal performance, the designer specs, and also energy and water efficiency. So it becomes this very comprehensive way to look at it. And at the point of sale, you have the opportunity actually to generate then a full report, a sustainable home report, and add that to your listing. So it's transferable to a new owner. And with that, every single investment will be then in a new ownership, a part of that value experience around the home. And we are seeing already, you know, at auctions, definitely like a good increase in 10 to 15, sometimes even more % of biddings. And I think this is something which will only increase in the next years, because these homes will be significant better, and they will not actually draw on all these high costs, for example, around energy and other elements. So it's a really important part to consider, and also in the long run to look at values, home property values, and to have some resilience factor built in that thinking.
Yeah. And if I can just say one thing, that the important thing is, where I see the importance of Evitat is the education. Because the thing is, especially if you do something on your home, if you have to replace the windows because they're rotten, you want to do it properly. You don't want to accidentally get someone to talk you into buying a substandard double glazed aluminium window that still costs a lot of money, but it will not do its purpose. So if you upgrade something in your house, you have to make the house climate resilient. You have to put something in there that is fit for purpose and not just looking nice and keeping the rain out or something. And similar with your walls. If you have to replace the cladding because the cladding is falling apart, that's your chance to insulate your wall properly. So, but the consumers have to be educated enough that they know those things. And this is, I think, one of the benefits where Evitat comes in as well. People can track what they can do, but also get the proper information. What are the best steps I could do? And, make sure my home is, resilient and, for future challenges ahead.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so feel free to explore it. The logbooks are currently in a beta version out there, and they are for free. We are rolling out many really interesting features, also property valuation, which will basically add a layer on top of the known valuation criteria. And there's a whole lot more. So even having stored your builds around certain improvements, I'm just pulling this in all the time. Like, we have a solar PV system, and I know that all the documents are somewhere with accounting, possibly. So if something happens, it will be a headache actually pulling that together and having even the access to the contact details. So this is a little bit actually also creating an easier way actually to access information of contact, to access information of maintenance and warranties. So it's a comprehensive tool really to consider. Well, we are at the end, a few minutes over time, and I really want to thank everyone. It was a very insightful session into the details of UPVC and also an emerging market actually around circularity and components, and how to utilize actually the new economy. And really to build climate resilient homes. And even with retrofits, there's a lot of possibilities to tap into. So thank you, Michael.
No,
Simone,
a pleasure.
Daniel.
And
Thanks,
thank you,
Michael.
Sonia, Simone, and Daniel. And anybody out there are more than welcome to come down, have a look, have a tour. We will take you right through. We do make a great coffee. We do have several biscuits, so take your time and enjoy the experience. And thank you, guys.
Awesome.
That's great.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Pleasure.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.